Hello again, and welcome to week 19 of year 3 of the Religious Education Initiative. We are now well and thoroughly into the new year of 2023. This is day 1. For the last several weeks, we have read selections from the Old and New Testament relating to the feast of Christmas, and we set aside temporarily our journey through the life of Abraham. This week, we return to the story immediately after the long-awaited birth of Isaac. Back in the first full week of December, we read of Isaac's birth and of how Abraham obeyed God's commandment and circumcised Isaac on the 8th day after his birth, dedicating him and all his descendants to be the holy people of God. Just last week, we celebrated the great fulfillment of that dedication in the feast of our Lord's circumcision and naming on January 1st. But now we will continue with the story and see what happens to Hagar and to Ishmael now that Isaac has been born. So, this is from verse 8 of chapter 21 of Genesis. The child grew, that's Isaac, and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, playing with her son Isaac. So she said to Abraham, "Cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave woman shall not inherit along with my son Isaac." The matter was very distressing to Abraham on account of his son. But God said to Abraham, "Do not be distressed because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you, for it is through Isaac that offspring shall be named for you. As for the son of the slave woman, I will make a nation of him also, because he is your offspring." So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder along with the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she cast the child under one of the bushes. Then she went and sat down opposite him a good way off, about the distance of a bow shot, for she said, "Do not let me look on the death of the child." And as she sat opposite him, she lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the boy, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven, and said to her, "What troubles you, Hagar? Do not be afraid, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Come, lift up the boy, and hold him fast with your hand, for I will make a great nation of him." Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. She went and filled the skin with water, and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy, and he grew up. He lived in the wilderness and became an expert with the bow. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother got a wife for him from the land of Egypt. So, there are a few things that we need to attend to here as well. The first is simply the cruelty of the situation, that Abraham has this son. He has the slave woman who has, at least on one occasion, become effectively, being a slave, also a sex slave, and has born a son. She here, then it appears unjustly, is sent away from shelter, from protection, and her son as well, out into the desert. And this doesn't seem right to us. This doesn't seem good. This doesn't seem fair. And, well, frankly, it's not. What God says to Abraham is, "Do what your wife urges you, and don't worry. I will take care of the child and of his mother." And God is faithful. God does do this. But we need to consider, why does God tell him to go ahead and do what Sarah urges? And I think we see something of the answer here at the very beginning. Sarah is not being kind, as it were, but she's not wrong in what she perceives. Ishmael, as the son of Hagar, has been raised with the values and the way of thinking that Hagar brought from Egypt. He has been raised as his mother's son. And now he's substantially older than Isaac, the child of promise. Isaac is the heir, but Ishmael is older. And what Sarah sees with the older son playing with the baby Isaac, or the toddler Isaac perhaps, since he's been weaned, this reflects a superiority in age of one to the other, what would over time grow into a real superiority, maybe even Isaac being subordinate, always looking up to Ishmael, or some sort of competition within the household. Sarah is looking at this and thinking, rightly, this is not going to go well. They're not full brothers. There is an intrinsic competition between them, or at least she wants there to be. She does not want Ishmael to be the power behind, Isaac. She does not want Ishmael to be influencing Isaac after all the parents are dead and gone. And in sending Ishmael and Hagar away, we do get then, in some sense, a restoration of the family as it had been. No children except the son of promise, God's gift to them. So in short, this is a consequence. This is a playing out of the mistake that Sarah and Abraham made. And I think it is a mistake. Some commentators, view this in other ways. Even some of the fathers have something of a different perspective, but it's not monolithic. There's room for interpretation here. I think that it's a mistake. It's not hard to imagine. Abraham was not married to Hagar. He was married to Sarah. Sarah should not have suggested it. Abraham should not have gone along with it. I don't think that's controversial. But because they did do this, there was a child born of that union. God cares for that child. God gives to him the promises of Abraham. He makes him a father of a great nation as well. But he is not the child through whom the Messiah will be born. He is not the child whose descendants God will choose to be his particular special people. Because he's not the child of God's intervention and grace. He's the child of misplaced human ambition and human effort. Human beings trying to find a solution for a problem that God will solve because they get impatient. So that really is the great piece of this. Not great in the yay, this is wonderful, but great in the this is a big deal. It's difficult to read. This does not say that Ishmael is not favored by God. This does not say that Ishmael is cut out of the covenant. It simply says he is not, he is born by human effort, not by God's intervention. And we see St. Paul get into this. He uses the example of the child of promise and the child of human passions in the later chapters of the book of Romans. And the point of this really is to juxtapose, to compare God's action, God's promise, God's purpose with human effort, human brokenness, human trouble. So what we see here is human mistakes, human failings in this passage. We see God's faithfulness with Abraham and Sarah and Isaac, and with Hagar and Ishmael. And at the same time, we see human mistakes. God will bring them to a good purpose. He will bring about beauty and righteousness and holiness. But on the same token, the consequences of the mistakes are not done away with. They're not wiped away. And this is important. God doesn't tell Abraham to kill Ishmael, to kill Hagar, to just get rid of them and start fresh. He tells Abraham to send them away, and then God takes care of them himself. That final point is vitally important. If God just sent them away, or told Abraham, yes, send them away, it's fine. They're going to corrupt your household, get rid of them. And that's the end of the story. This would be a very troubling account. As it is, God tells Abraham, send them away, I will take care of them. And he does. And God's faithfulness, even in the face of human failure, human mistakes. This is what we should take away from the passage. So, God bless you all. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you again shortly for day 2.